everyone, my name is Ballou, and we're here today at creativelive.com to talk about recording. The video you just saw was a band called Nice Hooves, who were nice enough to come out to my studio, God City, to do some pre-taping for this class. You know, as you see, we're in a TV studio now. There's a lot of logistic challenges when trying to bring a TV studio into a recording studio and vice versa. So that's why we're here today in the TV studio. But did a lot of filming in my studio, and I'm going to keep referring to that filming over the course so you guys get a feel for what it's like to be in my studio doing work there. But as Russ said earlier and Finn said earlier, most of what I do is you know, not specific to a specific location or a specific group of equipment. It's really more about techniques. And in this course, I'm going to try to talk about technique and how to apply these techniques to whatever your recording environment happens to be. So again, the band that I got to help me out, they're called Nice Hooves, and if you hear me refer to their names over the course of the video, I'm talking about those guys. So we got Dave on vocals, Tony on drums, Randall and Aaron on guitar, and Kenny on bass, and they're good friends of mine and nice enough to come out to my studio and let me guinea pig on them and tape them over a weekend. Yeah, so thank you guys again for being here and watching this class, both my studio audience and my internet audience. One thing that Russ and Finn didn't mention that we're going to do is if you purchase the class, there's a set of reverb impulses that I made in my studio that we're offering to you for free download if you purchase the class, and those are done with a if you have a convolution reverb, you can plug these impulses into them. And so what I did was I modeled some of the key outboard gear that I have in my studio, as well as modeled the sounds of the rooms in the studio. So, you know, like you can get the tone of my overheads, or the tone of my close room mics, or the tone of my distant room mics, or a mix of those sounds, and then you can apply those to your recordings, especially if you're recording in a tight space that doesn't have a lot of natural ambience, and you want to impart, you know, the sound of a studio to that tight space. These reverb impulses are a way to do that pretty realistically. So I'm going to talk for a second just about my background and really, like, is this class for you? So when these guys asked me to do this course, initially they asked me about picking one specific topic and teaching a course on that, whether that's, you know, a drum sound or guitar sounds or bass sounds or something like that. But I opted not to do that. I think of recording as more of a holistic approach. You know, as recording engineers, we're tasked with balancing a lot of minutia, but the end goal of that is to further the song and to really learn what our clients want and to give it to them. And that's done through balancing a lot of minutia. So this course is going to cover all that minutia, but it's also going to cover a lot of the broad brush stuff of, you know, being a psychologist and a confidant to the bands that I'm recording, as well as you know, helping them manage their business. It's everything. So I'm going to take kind of a holistic approach to this. So the people that I'm kind of targeting in this class is, you know, people similar to me, or maybe people with similar goals to me, but a little bit less experienced. And I think I'm going to try to put stuff in here for the novice through expert recording engineer, as well as just musicians who have felt confused by the recording process, or felt as though, you know, I know, and one of the reasons why I got into recording is that, you know, I felt like the songs that I wrote were my babies, and that they're sort of getting taken away from me in the studio because I didn't understand the process and couldn't communicate well with the recording engineer. So even if you're not a recording engineer and you're just a musician, you want to understand the recording process a little better so that you can more effectively communicate with the person recording you. I think I'm going to try to put a lot of that type of information in this course as well. So for those of you who don't know me well, as Russ and Finn said, I've been playing guitar in a band called Converge for see, I think I got a little slide here. Yeah, that's me. So I've been playing guitar in a band called Converge since 1991, and we play some pretty aggressive, chaotic kind of music. It's definitely not for everyone, so if you don't like my band, I'm not upset with you. I probably wouldn't like my band either if I wasn't in it. And then, so for the first 5 years or so of the band, I didn't really know much about recording, and I felt lost in recording studios a lot of the time. So, I started recording myself. I saved up enough money to buy an 8-track and a small mixing console, and I started recording in my parents' garage in 1996. And I chose the name God City because one of my favorite bands at the time was called Soulside, and they had a song called God City, and the first lyric of the song was "This is God City," and I thought that would sound really cool on an answering machine. That was like my ultimate business, my ultimate business goal at the time was maybe someday my studio would be big enough to have its own answering machine, and that would sound cool on an answering machine message, so I'm stuck with that now. And I'm currently in my fourth studio, which is in Salem, Massachusetts. Got a small little commercial brick building that I live on the second floor. I have my studio on the first floor, and I've been there for about 11 years now. Yeah, so that's a little background on me, and the type of bands that I record are usually sort of somewhat similar to my band, like aggressive, underground, independent type music, and typically bands who, what excites, there's a lot of different subgenres of underground aggressive music, and we all sort of think that our little subgenre is the best, and that's fine. And in my little subgenre, I think that people tend to like organic, real-sounding recordings, and I think dynamics and little flaws and stuff like that are all acceptable and sometimes even preferred. Whereas, some other genres you might want a more pristine recording. Mostly what I'm doing is sort of capturing and enhancing and furthering the feeling of watching, some wild, aggressive, heavy band at a live show, maybe even like a basement show or small clubs. And I'm not usually going for that perfect stadium rock type of sound. So that's the kind of stuff that I do. And if you guys are doing similar stuff, maybe you'll get a lot out of this. But even if you aren't, I hope that that I can present these ideas and concepts in a way that you'll still get something out of them and apply it to whatever type of music you're working on. The way that I learned recording was mostly just through experimentation and the internet. Back when I had a day job, I got to waste my time on the internet a lot, and there was a news group called rec.audio.pro, which was full of audio professionals just on there kind of gabbing and sharing knowledge. And back in the formative days of the internet, the signal to noise ratio on those message boards was a lot better than it is today. But I think that there's still a lot of great information to be had out there, like reading, Pro Sound Web and the tape op board and Gear Sluts and the electrical audio board and stuff. And I still do that. I read those things. I learn techniques that other people are doing, and then try to apply them to my own recordings and see what I can get out of them, and make them my own. And that's what I encourage everybody here to do: is take any information that you might get out of this course and try out some of the ideas, and maybe they work for you, and maybe they don't. And if they do, great. If not, great. I'm just like anybody else. I'm just a dude, and what do I know? And take everything I say with a grain of salt, and anything that I say is a rule isn't really a rule. It's just an idea, and apply it or don't apply it. So, oh yeah, nice hooves. So as you see the videos, you want to equate a face with a name. That's the dudes. They're good friends, and that's why they're all holding hands. Our goal here is about music. A lot of recording instruction is about the technical minutia. Which mic to use on a guitar, which mic to use on a snare drum, blah blah blah. And I'm going to do all that stuff. I'm going to get super technical about what I like to do in a studio and why I do it. But I just want to make sure that any of the technical things you're doing are to further your artistic goals. So dictionary.com describes music as art of sound and time that expresses ideas and emotions in significant forms through the elements of rhythm, melody, harmony, and color. So in layman terms, I'd sort of done that down to being, my definition is that music is just sound arranged, designed to produce an emotional response. Nothing in this definition says that it has to be to a click track, or you have to trigger the drums, or you have to not trigger the drums, or you have to, you have to be in stereo, or you have to use a Marshall, or whatever. Like we use all this very technical minutia, but that is to further a very subjective, amorphous goal, which is music. So there really is no right or wrong thing to do when engineering. There's really only trying to make the best decisions to support your ultimate goal, which is to make great music that you're proud of and that everybody working on the project is proud of. All right, so what do we have next here? Tools. We're going to talk a lot about tools. But to me, the concept of tools does not just apply to equipment. It applies to technique. It applies to everything you have at your disposal to make a record. So, and those things start with the players and the songs. So, as a recording engineer, each member of the band is one of your tools to make a record. I mean, they're not making your record, you're making their record, but they're still a tool that you use to get the best tone. So the player and their instruments, that's where the tone starts, and then further into the rooms. The tone of your room very much affects the tone of the record, and that's a tool too. You can say, I'm going to put this person in my ISO booth, or I'm going to put this person in the live room, or I'm going to record them in my bedroom or in my pool or whatever, or I'm going to put them on this side of the room, I'm going to put them on that side of the room. That's a tool. And then the gear. Obviously your microphones, your mic preamps, your converters, all that stuff are tools. So what you want to do is you want to learn those tools, learn what you have at your disposal between physical things and your own techniques, and then use those to make the best decisions. Recording, I think, is sort of roughly analogous to life. Each day in life, you're presented with a certain set of circumstances and you make decisions, and then you're forced to live with the consequences. And the more that you delay making decisions in your life, the harder it is to actually arrive at a result. So you end up with this sort of infinite set of variables, and then you're at a certain point you become paralyzed by all these variables and you're not able to push forward. And the same is true with recording. I mean, in recording you need to make a decision and then move on. You say like, hey, you know what, I'm going to use that mic on the snare drum, and then I'm going to live with the consequences. And then maybe it's ultimately not the greatest choice to accurately capture that snare drum, but then you work around that and make that part of the character of the record. And then that's your snare sound. So then you're judging your guitar and your bass tone and your vocal tone around the snare sound, and you move ahead with your life and move ahead with your record. Not sweating the decisions of the past. I guess the difference between making records and life is that you get to make more than one record. So you can use what you've learned to not make the same mistakes. Kind of neat if you could, like, at 80 years old, if you could go back and be like, hey, I want to do that differently and that differently. So I'm going to talk about the voice a little bit over the course of this course. And the voice is not always a human voice, but there's always a voice in a song. So what you want to do in recording is to always be aware of what the voice of the song is at that particular moment in time, and make sure that all the engineering that you're doing and all the coaching and whatnot that you're doing is to support what the voice is. So maybe it's like, some killer guitar riff, or it's a drum fill, or it is the actual voice, or it's a guitar solo or something. There should always be a focal point to a song at any given time, and make sure you're aware of what that focal point is. And it's some people might call it the hook, but it's the thing that the listener is going to most identify with at the song at any given moment in time. So make sure that you're following what the voice is at any given moment of time, and what you do in your recording and mixing supports that. Okay, just going to talk a little bit about how this course is going to proceed. So on day one, the first topic we're going to talk about is going to be the least technical of the entire course, but I urge you not to skip it. It's about interacting with clients. And as I stated earlier, I think a lot of recording engineers get really bogged down in the technical minutia of making records and sort of forget that they're being entrusted with a person's baby, and that they need to interact with their clients with the sort of respect that they would want to be interacted with if they were entrusting their baby in someone else's hands. So I want to talk about that, and I think it's the other thing is that a lot of us recording engineers tend to be very right-brained people, and maybe tend to be weirdo cellar dwellers that don't know how to talk to people. So I'm not going to say that the technical stuff comes easy for me, because it doesn't, but I think I've had to work a little bit harder on how to interact with other human beings than I have on how to set up a mic stand. So I do want to spend some time on that, and then we're going to get into segment 2, which will be the second segment this morning, which is going to be probably the most technical of the day. Drum setup stuff, and also I'm going to talk a little bit about the science of sound before I set up my first mic. And then after lunch, we're going to talk about drum tracking for a little while, just how to coax the best performances out of a drummer, and helping them identify what will push the song forward. And then the final segment today, we're going to talk about guitar setup and guitar tracking. So that's going to be everything from how to properly set up a guitar, intonating it, tuning it, selecting the right guitar, selecting the right string gauges, adjusting your truss rod, all that kind of stuff, through dialing in guitar amps, or maybe a combination of guitar amps, miking them, and then coaxing the guitars through their performances. So tomorrow we're going to finish up the setup and tracking stuff with bass and vocals. I'm devoting a little bit less time to that stuff than the guitar and drum stuff, just because bass shares a lot of the same technical thoughts as guitar does, and vocal is, it's one of the simpler things to engineer, at least at a introductory level. And then we've got 3 segments tomorrow on mixing. I'm going to spend a lot of time on drums, both in the pre-mix work I do to set up drums, and we'll talk about EQ, compression, and effects, but we're also going to talk a lot about some specialty tom editing, as well as some phase alignment of drums, and I'm going to get into that convolution reverb stuff starting then. So the impulses that I made in my studio that I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be using some of those in the pre-mix part of the drums, and then we'll talk about the other instruments as well, and then also some final mix treatment stuff. I'll spend quite a bit of time on stereo bus processing and why I feel as though that's important, and then how that mix and master stuff are interrelated, and also some sort of coaching of what to expect about mastering, how to choose a good mastering engineer, and how to help your clients understand what mastering really is and what they can expect from mastering, and what can and can't be done in the mastering process.